Hi there. This is Mr. Bear checking in with you for some Old Testament Bible study in the book of Daniel. Daniel is one of the minor prophets. It's after all the major prophets in the Old Testament, but before the New Testament. This is our Bears Prophets study. And we are coming along quite well, slow but sure, because bears don't move very fast, unless they're chasing you down, unless you're a threat to their little kitties, and then we're going to chase you down. Then you rattle us up, we're going to chase you down. You try and hurt our kitties, we're going to chase you down. And then we move fast, Other than that, we move at our own good pace, Unless it's dinner time, then we move kind of fast too to get to the dinner table, All right, with that in hand, we are moving to Daniel chapter 8. Daniel chapter 8. We are once again whirling backwards in time. And Daniel is going to repeat out for us a dream that he had while he was still in the Babylonian kingdom as a palace seer, as a wise man during the rule of the Babylonians. But presently, they've already been overrun by the MEDIO-PERSIans, by the ram with the two horns. But he's looking backwards to this dream that he had a long time ago. And now that it's kind of gone forward, he can kind of see the end of the Babylonian Empire, the beginnings to the Medo-Persian Empire, and little hints and whispers of a little incy-bincy country named Greece. In the 3rd year of the reign of King Belshazzar, a vision appeared unto me, even unto me Daniel, after that which appeared unto me at the first. And I saw in a vision, and it came to pass when I saw that I was at Shushan in the palace, which is in the province of Elam. And I saw in a vision, and I was by the river Ulai. Then I lifted up mine eyes and saw, and behold, there stood before the river a ram, which had 2 horns. And the 2 horns were high, but one was higher than the other, and the higher came up last. That means it probably had a little curlicue in it, and yet was longer, so it was kind of, had the curlicue, so it was long, but one of them had a curlicue in it. And I saw the ram pushing westward, so westward out of Medo-Persia towards what we would call now Iraq, which was then the Babylonian Empire, Syria, so forth, northward, up over Mount Ararat, southward, down into Egypt, so that no beast might stand before him, neither was there any that could deliver out of his hand. But he did according to his will and became great. And as I was considering, behold, a he-goat came from the west on the face of the whole earth, and it touched not the ground, and the goat had a notable horn between his eyes. Wow. I didn't know it was going to be Animal Kingdom Day. Probably neither did you. But it's going to be Animal Kingdom Day here in the book of Daniel. We're going to talk about a couple of animals. Not your usual animals. We're going to talk about a ram with a little curlicue in his horns. And he's a monster of a ram, and nobody can get in his way. And he's pushing west and south and north, and nobody can stand before him. And that's the way the Medo-Persian Empire was. It was big. It was great. The Artaxerxes, the Darius I, Darius II, they were masterful as commanders and kings. And then came the time when they overestimated a rather small kingdom called Greece. So we move along. The goat had a notable horn between his eyes. And he came to the ram that had the two horns, which I had seen standing before the river, and ran unto him in the fury of his power and his wrath. And I saw him come close unto the ram, and he was moved with anger against him and rage, and smote the ram and brake his two horns. And there was no power in the ram to stand before him, but he cast him down to the ground and stamped upon him, and there was none that could deliver the ram out of his hand. Therefore the he-goat waxed very great, and when he was strong, the great horn was broken. And for it came up 4 notable ones towards the 4 winds of the heaven. Wow. We went from just a normal little prophetic book to the animal kingdom. We're talking about world powers here. We're talking end times. We're talking end of the age. Is being talked about in the world around right in front of us right here in the book of Daniel. Way back in 500-600 BC. Wow. So we had this ram with 2 horns, one with a little curlicue. And the hairy goat came out and smashed him. The goat had one little horn that grew into a big horn. And then the horn was shattered, and the horn had 4 little horns that grew out to the 4 winds of heaven. That means throughout the earth. So we're talking not just enclosed to the Grecian Empire here, even to the Roman Empire. We're talking to the 4 corners of the earth. The 4 winds, the 4 corners. Let's move on. I want to hear more about this. This is really interesting. And out of one of them came forth a little horn. Wow, it's just the 4 horns just went to the 4 corners of the earth, and out of one of them comes up, boop, 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 a little horn. Just a little one. But it waxed exceeding great toward the south and toward the east and towards the pleasant land. It waxed great even to the host of heaven. Host of heaven. How do these guys riding around on camels and horses and donkeys get to the heavens? We're talking spaceship time here. How can this be? I'll tell you, back then they didn't know how that would be. But I'll tell you now how it be. We're shooting up satellites and rockets and missiles up in the air almost every day. There's some kind of launch someplace. They're shooting up some satellite or rover or some, probe going off into the galaxy someplace. Yeah. Up to the host of heaven. I can't explain it all. I can only tell you back then they probably were like, how in the world do you do that? But I'll tell you, we're blasting off rocket ships like crazy. I can't even, I try to follow them. I can't hardly keep track. Bears are not overly smart, but we try to keep track of, launches and ships, launching and all that. And it's like they're constantly going off. How can you keep track of them? God can. And there are some that are going to be very important during this time period. We don't understand it all, but and it waxed great even to the host of heaven, and it cast down some of the host and of the stars to the ground and stamped upon them. Now understand, we have the physical realm going on because we're talking about animals and kingdoms and the earth, but we also have the spiritual realm where the powers and the principalities of the air, they rule and reign. They have some dominion. One day that dominion will be taken away. God will throw them to the earth. Michael and the angels will fight and they will be cast to the earth. But that at this point in time, they have some influx. The atom bomb. The colliding, the bombarding in the atomic fusion process that made by men reading books of false religion and demonic worship. Where do you think they got some of that knowledge from? Yeah. Spiritual hosts gave them some insight to some very, very powerful weapons. We broke a lot of laws when we created the nuclear fission world, the atom bombs and the H bombs and the hydrogen bombs that we could put in a rocket and send it over the poles and it break up into 10 or 15 small ones and pulverize hundreds of square miles. So yeah, this book is catapulted into right now. It's amazing. And I can see where Daniel got a little bit weary and confused. This was like, even reading this book now, it's like, it's hard to get through one chapter at a time. It's heavy, friend. It's good. But it's like an action-packed movie where they never take a break. Let's move on. This is a good movie here. But a real one. This is a real one. Yea, he magnified himself even to the prince of the host, and by him the daily sacrifice was taken away, and the place of his sanctuary was cast down. And an host was given to him against the daily sacrifice by reason of transgression, and it cast down the truth to the ground, and it practiced and prospered. Whoa, guess what, friend? We just started talking about the beast. Did you get that? We just went from old time Babylonian to the Medo-Persian to the Greece to these four horns over the face of the earth to this little horn popping up. And all of a sudden things in the heavens are going up and coming down. And all of a sudden we're talking about the beast. And when this starts to happen, there's going to be a temple built. And the Jewish people are going to have sacrifices again. And this man, though he probably is going to help them build the temple, even help them with the sacrifice until that day he comes and said, no more, you're going to worship me. And that's when they're told to get out of Jerusalem, get out of Judah, and head for the hills, because the tribulation that has already started is going to go to rapid thrust. And all hell is going to break loose on the earth. Then I heard one saint speaking, and another saint said unto the certain saint, which spake, how long shall be the vision concerning the daily sacrifice, and the transgression of desolation, to give both the sanctuary and the host to be trodden under foot? And he said unto me, unto 2,300 days, and then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. So we can see this man, this beast, ruler. A lot of things have already happened. Tribulation started. The Christians are in heaven. With the rapture, the church has happened. Possibly the marriage supper of the Lamb's going on. All Hades is breaking loose on the earth. The beast has an army, and he's established himself as a ruler. He's helped the Jews maybe build the temple and establish the sacrifice. And then he says, no more of these sacrifices. You worship me. From that time until that's all restored is about 2,300 days. A year and a half or so. And then the sanctuary will be restored. The Jews are going to have some sacrifices and all of that, looking back to what they did prior to the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. We don't really know why, but the Jews are going to keep those things. Those are going to go on, not only on this earth, but in the new heavens and the new earth. it does appear that they're going to have temple sacrifices. Not for the atonement of their sin, but for a picture to look back, an honorance of God, Yahweh, Jehovah God, who rescued them as a nation and brought them through the fire. And they will live predominantly on the new earth. Whereas Christians, New Testament Christians, all New Testament Christians, Greeks, Gentiles, Germans, Jews that have been born again, they will have a place in the New Jerusalem and the ability to come and go as they please. That does appear that way. But Jews that have come through the tribulation and so forth, that are on the earth and have come through all this, it does appear that they're going to have a Jerusalem on earth and the new earth, and some type of animal sacrifices and a keeping of that in honorance and worship to Yahweh God. We don't really know why, but it does appear that's to an honorance of God for what he's already done for them in the both the fleshly world, the secular world, the real world, but also in the spiritual world. Okay, we move on. And it came to pass, when I, even I, Daniel, have seen the vision and sought for the meaning, then behold, there stood before me the appearance of a man. And I heard a man's voice between the banks of the Ulai, which called and said, Gabriel, make this man to understand the vision. So he came near where I stood, and when he came, I was afraid and fell upon my face. But he said unto me, Understand, O Son of Man, for at the time of the end shall be the vision. Now as he was speaking with me, I was in a deep sleep on my face towards the ground. I probably would be too. This is heavy. But he touched me and set me upright. And he said, Behold, I will make thee know what shall be in the last end of the indignation. For at the time of the appointed the end shall be. The ram which thou sawest, having 2 horns, are the kings of Media and Persia. And the rough goat is the king of Grecia. And the great horn that is between his eyes is the first king. Now that being broken, whereas 4 stood up for it, the 4 kingdoms shall stand up out of that nation, but not in his power. And in the later time of their kingdom, when the transgressors are come to the full, a king of fierce countenance and understanding dark sentences shall stand up. And his power shall be mighty, but not by his own power. And he shall destroy wonderfully, and shall prosper in practice, and shall destroy the mighty and the holy people. And through his policy also he shall cause craft to prosper in his hand, and he shall magnify himself in his heart, and by peace shall destroy many. He shall also stand up against the prince of princes, but he shall be broken without hand. And the vision of the evening and the morning which hold is true. Wherefore shut up the vision, for it shall be for many days. And I, Daniel, fainted and was sick certain days. Afterwards I rose up and did the king's business, and I was astonished at the vision, but none understood it. I can relate with that. Way back in 500 BC, trying to understand all this magnificent power, these miracles in the heavens and on earth in the spiritual realm. When they were riding around on camels and donkeys trying to understand rocket ships blasting off and meteors and satellites coming down out of the heavens, how could they understand it? We can barely understand it, and we know all these things. It's cool. But like I said, the book of Daniel is a good movie, and it's a real movie, not like a lot of the garbage that's out there. It's just trash. This is real. This is like a movie that doesn't never stop. It just keeps going and gets better and better and better. So I hope you've enjoyed, because I have. God bless you. See you next time.